I would like to take a moment before we get into today's main episode and to talk about my sponsor for the podcast. Podmatch is a new podcasting site dedicated to all podcasters. The platform helps hosts get connected with potential guests to appear on their show, as well as allow guests to find podcasts that will give them a chance to share their story. Podmatch offers many tools to help organize your page, from to-do lists to episode planning to potentially appearing on a leaderboard. Podmatch has it all. The best part, you have the potential to get paid. And who doesn't like to get paid from home? I like to. With an easy sign up, you can start connecting with podcasters and guests immediately. I have been a part of Podmatch since the beginning of May, and I have got to say that it was the best decision I've ever made because Podmatch helps your podcast grow. It helps you get connected with people that have very interesting, very compelling background stories that are just waiting for their story to be shared. So if you are a host or guest and would like to start building professional relationships, explore more opportunities, and have your story shared, I highly suggest that you sign up with Podmatch today by going to joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to start expanding your network in seconds. I would like to give another huge thank you to Podmatch for sponsoring this episode. Now on to our main episode, and again, you can sign up at joinpodmatch.com/lethal venom to begin your podcasting journey today. Hello everyone, welcome back to the Lethal Venom podcast. This is the show where I talk about anything I want with the honest to God truth, no lies told. I just want to say, we've had the biggest tech malfunction, so I'm using Riverside for this recording, so I don't know how this is going to sound. I'm hoping that it doesn't mess up and fuck up, but we live and we learn. It's trying something new. So I've had it for a while, but I've only been a guest. But today we have a guest. He's witnessed this whole catastrophe behind the camera. I have with me today Mr. Anthony Guastella. He has overcome many health challenges. All of them have put him in position to help other people do the same. He eventually became a certified health coach through the Institute of Transformational Nutrition. He has a strong desire to help because he knows what it's like to not feel well and do what you want. The content he talks about will equip you with the tools to live a life full of health, freedom, and happiness. Complex health topics are broken down into simple ways to understand. No topic is off limits, so he is open to conversations of heart disease, cancer, diabetes, sleep, hormones, or any other wellness topic. He is the one you want to talk to. So I want to give a huge welcome to Anthony. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing this story, because it's a unique approach to what I think you're doing that I think a lot of people don't do. So I'm really happy and honored to have you on today.
Thank you for having me, man. It's an honor.
So if you could just share a little bit about yourself and what you do with my listeners.
100%. So I am a health coach, and basically I help people take control of their health. I do that for various aspects. But how did I get there? So essentially, I had a Lyme disease diagnosis for 6 years. All right. And I was just a kid at the time, 16 years old. And I had the whole future ahead of me, right? And I was already motivated and activated, just really wanted to live life. Then all of a sudden, everything was taken, right? Seemingly. And I was experiencing every symptom that you can imagine. Thyroid issues, joint pain. The joint pain was just horrible. It was so severe. Fibromyalgia, I can go down the list. And, the doctors were telling me I could not get well. The circumstances were so dark and seemingly impossible because, man, as a kid, you're supposed to be this vibrant human being, but things were just so bad. It was terrible. And I was essentially left with two choices. I can either be a victim or a victor, right? I can listen to inner guidance, which is exactly what I did. I can actually use the tools of wellness and personal development, mindset, all these things, which I had to learn. It was such a learning curve for me. And, it took 6 long years. Knowing what I know now will probably take me 6 months. But through that, man, I built my character, and being on the other side completely healed, I'm on fire to help as many people as I can take control of their health and make their dreams a reality.
Well, that's amazing. When you got diagnosed with Lyme disease, did you have any early signs of symptoms, or was it kind of just like a shock diagnosis that they kind of just threw at you like, oh, by the way, you have Lyme disease?
So with Lyme disease, essentially, it's kind of it's kind of tricky. So you can get bit by a tick or anything like that, and you can be totally fine. And the
Mm.
problem is that when your immune system becomes compromised over time, that's what happens because the disease kind of lays dormant in the body. And I remember like I was 8 years old when this happened, but then I didn't really get diagnosed until I was like 16 because I was overcoming a lot of stress during that time. So that's kind of what I attribute to. But as you mentioned, the early signs and symptoms, man, like I started first because I was an athlete and I was noticing like I was just so stiff. Like, what is happening? And then it kind of progressed very quickly into I'm in a lot of pain. I'm in thyroid issues. So it's kind of snowballed.
How long have you been dealing with the Lyme disease?
So I no longer have it, but it was 6 years, 16 to 22, I would say.
Was treatment difficult for you at a young age, having to deal with Lyme disease at a young age?
Absolutely, man. So I started off with the traditional medical model, and with Lyme disease, it's kind of good to get if you catch it within the 2 weeks, or antibiotics may be helpful. But chronic Lyme, which is what most people have, they do absolutely nothing. It's a stealth infection, and it kind of gets into all the crevices of the body. It's very hard to get rid of. It's very difficult, and essentially, dealing with the traditional medical model, I didn't really get anywhere. And that kind of led me on a path to holistic wellness and learning all the tools from there.
How was describe the treatment process of what was the next steps after you got diagnosed, and how long
Yeah,
did you do treatment for?
absolutely. So what I did, man, but before I get into that, I'm going to say the number one thing that healed me is the relationship I have with myself. Understanding that mindset is the foundation, and having a huge reason to get well, like knowing your purpose, your values, your integrity, all these things, having the character as the foundation. Because what happens, man, is I'm always motivated by possibility. I just knew that I knew that when I was going through it, this is my life's purpose. It was a deep conviction within my soul. And I knew that once I get to the other side of this, I'm going to live a life of purpose. And the thing is, that process, man, I wouldn't change it because it forged my character to be able to do what I am now. I like to say life qualifies you through a form of challenges for the life that you're meant to live. So by overcoming challenges, that's how you live the life that you're actually designed for.
So going to a little bit more about after you were able to conquer your Lyme disease, and congrats on that. I know that was a huge blessing. Um,
Thank you.
you went to go get be a certified health coach through the Institute of the Transformational Nutrition. Did did the Lyme disease kind of make you want to go into the medical field after you had recovered it, so where you could help other people that were?
So to kind of wrap up the last point, essentially learning all the tools of wellness and personal development, and podcasting was the number one thing that I used for education. And that was the number one thing. Like once I get to the other side of this, man, I'm going to start my own podcast. So that was like when I was in going through it, man. I'm just like when I do that, I made it, right? I don't know if I made it, but I did start that podcast, and just staying on track with the mission every single day. That's what I find is key.
Who have been some of the biggest inspirations that you had during your recovery process?
Yeah, man. So there's a man named Sean Stevenson. You have heard of him?
Why does that name sound familiar? He
So
sounds familiar for some reason.
yeah, so he's in the health and wellness space. He's been my number one mentor. His podcast has been so helpful for me, all his information. And I love that question because as a mentor, you want to look for someone who has walked the path that you want to be on, right? Someone who's been where you want to be. And having that guiding light is so important, man, because we have all these difficult circumstances in our lives, right? But it's important to listen to outside guidance, but ultimately we have to filter it through our own values and our own integrity. So yes, have those mentors, but ultimately understand that you have to make a decision at the end of the day.
So you are the host of your own podcast. It's Anthony Guastella Wellness. Tell me a little bit more about how the podcast came to be, and what's the experience been like since you've become a podcaster?
Absolutely, man. So I just remember like being in the pain of the disease, right? And because it was so dark sometimes, but it was like again, once I get to the other side of this, that's what I feel now. I feel that potential. And that podcast for me, man, it was so huge. Like over 200 episodes in, and what it is it's a facilitation of a mission to bring the tools of wellness and personal development to people become the greatest versions of themselves, right? Because there's so much information out there, and a lot of it is good, a lot of it isn't. Ultimately, we have to filter it back to who we are, right? See what works for us and what doesn't. And with the podcast, it gives you the opportunity to connect with awesome people, right? Like I'm connecting with you. And it gives you a platform to be of service to people, which is huge for me, man. And how I started it, because I'm a writer as well, like I write articles, and I just kind of did it based off articles I did, and it's a mission. I know you know this as well. It's a personal development process.
Yeah.
Like you grow in that process. It's like as you create a profession and career, like you're growing in that process. So that's what people lose sometimes. It's like you just go to a job and whatnot. Not there's anything wrong with that, but knowing that having a North Star that will guide you to what you want to do, having a vision and being aligned with your values, man, that's so key.
Through the podcasting thing, what's been the overall reception you've received from your listeners that have listened to your podcast? Have they shared stories with you about how you've talked about an experience and that they've used that episode to help them overcome and conquer what they were going through?
Yeah, it started off with just friends and family, all right? It started off real small. And, it meant the world to me to hear people who I love actually listen to the podcast and get value out of it. Because before I had the podcast, people would ask me questions like locally, because like I study this and I live this. And, now they have the thing that they can go to anytime. And, hearing that they're proud of me and all these things, man, it means the world to me because they know my story. They know what I've overcome to get where I've gone through. And now I serve as inspiration for them, people who I love. And that's why it's so important to stay in line with your own integrity, man, and work on your character because you are the living example for people around you. Like, people are watching you one way or another. And I find that the more I live my life in integrity, like, look, my grandma says that I'm a hero. My mom says she's proud. I know that all my decisions are going to impact them, whether I'm with them or not. So I know it's so key to, have my values in mind, the mission in mind, because we're going to have temptations, man, right? As a human, that's going to happen. But, can you stay on your character? That's the key. And, be of service in every way you possibly can.
What's been the most surprising place that you've heard someone say, "Oh, I'm from this place and I listen to your podcast"? What's been like do you have a general idea of where your podcast really hits most with people?
Yeah, so I speak as well, like locally, and I get a lot of people who start listening from that, and essentially, and because with the podcast, like you don't necessarily see the people or hear from them like in person, right? So, but
Yeah.
but then they come back around with that and tell me, "Oh, I listened to your show and I got so much value out of it." It means the world to me, man, because you're on your mission and you're on your path, right? And now the audience for me has actually been increasing, like because I don't know if you know the stats, man, but most podcasters they just stop. Like there's over 3 million podcasts of last year, and somebody who I interviewed shared to me only 200,000 episodes were published. Think of that. That's absolutely nothing. If if each podcast only published one episode per year, there'd be 3 million, but there's only 200,000. So that's why what I chalk that up to is having a purpose-driven mindset and being mission-oriented. Because being like going through, I went through, man, you can't stop this type of energy. Like knowing that you like other people are kind of looking to you in a sense. Like people ask me at the end of the day, what do you want? I just want to be a boss. I just want to have full agency over my mind, body, and spirit. I just want to win. So knowing that is so key because, as I said, man, like fear is contagious, but so is courage.
You made a good point about the podcasting thing about those stats. I did have someone interview me, or I think I was a guest on their show, and they had told me that they had seen a similar thing where most podcasts don't get past 4 or 5 episodes. They'll post maybe one good episode or maybe and then produce a few more and then just stop. It they said it's a really hard and it's real challenging for some podcasters to actually keep up the momentum because I think some of them worry most about numbers. And at first you kind of do, but then once you really realize someone is listening, the numbers kind of go away. I kind of quit looking at the numbers. Now, do I look at the numbers every day? Yeah, but I don't publicly be like, oh, I recently got 10,000 streams. I got 10,012 streams. Like, I'm not Italian like that, but podcasting now, it's like a job. It takes work. And I think when people see how much work it goes, they see how much work gets put into it. That kind of leads to discouragement. And they're like, that's too difficult. I don't have time for that. They just leave it there. So I actually didn't know about the 3 million podcasts and 200,000 episodes. So that was interesting to see.
That's a good
the
point,
amount of
man.
podcasts.
Like, as you said, like people just look at the numbers and they're like, oh, why am I not growing? Because you haven't put in the work, bro. You got to put in that service. Like you have to not necessarily focus on growth like that. You have to focus on what I say, man, is you have to focus on your own personal growth. And your success is going to be a byproduct of that because success is something you attract by the person that you become. You have to work on your character. Like, I never skip training. Like, outside of this, like, I'm always like, whatever it is, mind, body, spirit, man, I'm training. Like, that's who I am, right? And, essentially being a facilitator of the mission. And when your audience is meant to grow, I will, of course, like, look for strategies and, like, don't just, like, do nothing. But don't get discouraged. And, especially for someone who, like, if you're just starting and nobody knows you, I mean, because there are podcasts, like, who are just getting started by well-known people, and they get big numbers right away.
Yeah.
But their name is already out there. And if you really want this, if you really want this life, man, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. Because what's the alternative? Average? You're meant for greatness at the end of the day.
Yeah. There's a good example, and I am in no way shaming this person. He was a childhood thing for me, so I'm not dissing him, but I know a podcaster that's coming up is Steve Burns. And if people don't know who that is, I mean, he was child star, was on Blue's Clues. I mean, he was the first one that started Blue's Clues up. And he actually is coming out with a podcast, it's like a continuation of people that grew up with him as an adult. And, he has a huge following. He's really loved, and I love him too. And like he was such a childhood thing, and I'm like, who hates him? One of those things, like one of the celebrities of you can't hate him for nothing, and if you do, there's something wrong. And but he's kind of a good example. And as again, not throwing shade, but he'll instantly get numbers. I don't want y'all to think that. And I don't want to put in the mindset that if you start a podcast, that you're not going to get, that the first episode you're going to get 500 streams. No, now, could there be an opportunity where you get lucky? Yeah, because, internet and social media is wild. I mean, something you post could go viral. You never quite know. But the chances of it instantly happening are very slow or very, very low.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, even if I get like one view on something, I just put in the best quality work I can out there. Just put all your energy into it because it's an extension of you, and like I said before, it's a personal development process. And you can either put average energy into it, or you can put your best into it. And it's a process. And you may not be feeling your best. Like, things are going to happen in life. Things are going to happen. But ultimately, can you be present in this moment and do what you can and stand for the truth?
In regards to your podcast, what's the overall theme or message that you would like to, for a new listener, if they are listening to this and have never listened to your podcast, what's the main takeaway you want new people to have from your podcast?
So I basically break down complex health topics and make them simple, as you said at the top of the show. And the reason for that is, you know, there's this concept of like dumbing things down. I really think that's a terrible concept because, you know, I think you need to believe in people's intelligence, right? But also you don't want to like make things unnecessarily complex because like in the health and wellness space, you can talk to people. It's because science is kind of another language. You can talk to them in a certain way, but then you kind of teach it. Like being a teacher is a skill, right? So being able to have the person walk away feeling like they're the smart one, right? Because you want them to apply that in their own lives, whatever it is, whether it's health, nutrition, sleep, exercise, whatever it is. Like you want them to actually have a strong reason to implement it as well, so they can take it on their own lives. What I like to say, man, is if you want to influence somebody, is that number one thing you can do is be the model, be the living and walking representation, because people feel your energy. Also, make sure that you make what you do look awesome. Like let your results be known. Like for health, like you obviously can't control anybody, but can you, like if people have questions, of course, like let them know, hey, like I went from here to there and this is how I'm doing it, you know, and always being willing to help and connecting things to people's goals. That kind of leads like as an influence point. So if they have a goal and, to, I don't know, even if it's just a wealth related goal, like business related goal, show them how nutrition can actually improve their cognition and decision making. So things like that, you know.
Of the topics that you've discussed on your show, has there been a particular topic that you have seen people really get drawn to, that you were a little surprised that this many people seem interested in this particular topic?
That's a good question. I would say, you know, when I put on like something on water, for example, like it's a simple topic. Then I kind of like throw in some other things that most people wouldn't talk about, like certain biohacks, like hydrogen-rich water, deuterium-depleted water, these certain things like most people don't really know about. And I get a lot of views on that, for example. And I wouldn't necessarily think that, but I guess it's because it's something that most people don't talk about or something like that. But yeah, just is essentially putting as much information in the podcast as you can, so people can learn from that, because people are going to get different things from each episode, you know, because depends on what that person needs in that moment.
Right. You know, your show is really diverse. You know, it fits in one category of health, but there's so many things that you could talk about with health that there's a point where you don't really run, out of episode ideas. I mean, because there's just new stuff that always is found that could also be discussed on there. And it's an important thing that, you know, it's nothing too, nothing's really off limits. So I really like the diversity of the show. And, you know, while it does fit in one category, you cover a range of stuff. What does freedom mean to you personally, and how can we optimize it in our lives?
I love that, man. Freedom to me is everything. Like how I would define it. So health, wealth, relationships, all aspects of life, essentially becoming the greatest version of you. Freedom to actually live the life that you want, have agency over your mind, your body, your spirit. You know, essentially that's what it is. Because I look around, man, most people were not living up to our full potential. And freedom at the end of the day is overcoming your past. It's overcoming anything that's in your way and kind of making your dreams a reality at the end of the day.
You kind of have some questions here that are like health related that I've never really heard of. And I'm not saying that my audience is dumb, but I'm pretty sure that majority of them haven't heard it. Listen, I didn't hear them either, so I'm calling myself dumb. What exactly are hormetic stressors?
Yeah. So hormetic stressor is basically a short-term bout of stress that when you're able to recover from it, you become stronger in the long term. A perfect example is exercise, right? It's something you do in the short term, and if you allow your body to recover, it's going to strengthen the entire body. And anyone who has a consistent exercise routine knows that this is not just going to carry over to the gym, but if you actually work out for a consistent period of time, you're going to grow your character, and you're going to understand that you're going to have a much more capability to deal with challenges in your life. And exercise is one. When it comes to physical health, there's more. There's sunlight, fasting, heat, cold, right? Those four, and along with exercise. And what these do is they work on the nervous system, for example. I can go into these deeper, but a quick example. So cold therapy, man, like taking cold shower, cold plunges. What this does is it works on the nervous system. We have something called the vagus nerve, right? This is kind of the nerve that runs throughout the entire body, controlling the fight or flight response. And when you get in that cold, man, it's kind of like training. So let's take a cold shower, for example. And as a parallel exercise, maybe you start for 30 seconds and it's not as cold as it can be, right? Then you work your way up, maybe 2-3 minutes. 2-3 minutes is all you really need, honestly, to get the benefits. And then you turn it up as cold as you can, right? And then what I noticed, man, when I started doing that, like little like jolts of stress throughout the day, they don't have the edge anymore, because you're training your nervous system to deal with stress. It goes like, oh, I can recognize this, right? And I can go into physical benefits. Like it develops something called brown adipose tissue. Now, brown adipose tissue is a type of fat that burns fat in our bodies. All right, so it's the fat that's brown in certain parts of our bodies and actually helps you lose fat. So it's incredible. And it's brown because it's very dense in mitochondria, which is basically the power plants of our cells. Mm-hmm. So, and it goes into, there's something called cold shock proteins, which basically kind of makes you more resilient to stress as well. Those are just some quick examples.
I had someone on recently that talked about cold showers as well, and I've never understood the meaning of it, because I'm like, why would you want to get in a cold shower? And it's like, and then like, well, cold showers at the end, I can understand. The plunges, I don't understand that. Now, some people will take like an ice bath. I'm just like, oh, are you
There's many different ways to do it, but
I just like those kind of people are just a special breed, and it was just a breed I did not develop. Like,
I mean, it's a process. It's a process, Everybody can do it. It's like you don't have to because what we have in our mind is this overwhelming experience. But the reality is, just start small. Like I said, like maybe can you ease into it? Like don't do it that cold. Just just a process. Just like anything else.
So you have another thing on here that's like elemental health.
Yeah.
Go a little bit more in detail about what elemental health is.
Yeah. So as the hormetic stressors, those are kind of like the physical aspects, like outside of the elements in a sense. So what I mean by that is, so air, water, light. You have electromagnetic frequencies and earthing, right? These are 5 pillars of health that we need to optimize. So what I see is that when it comes to wellness, most people think of nutrition and exercise, which of course are extremely important pillars. But the reality is there's a lot to it. There's a lot more to it. Like holistic health, it goes a lot deeper into things. So air, water, light, all these things I've dived deep into, but I don't know if you want me to talk about them all briefly or go into them more, but it's like essentially how to optimize these in our lives to kind of leverage our health and wellness.
You can briefly discuss it if you would like.
Yeah, for sure. So start with air. Now, there's so many problems with our air. We can go into the air toxicity, but essentially like the indoor air is usually a lot more toxic than outdoor air generally. And that can be based off of so many household cleaning products, so many different fragrances that we're using, all these types of things. But essentially we can upgrade our air quality. And it's just by simple things. By having some certain plants in your house. Like NASA actually done a study they really studied certain house plants, like a snake plant and English ivy come to mind. Those are 2 that have been studied to clean the air. You can use certain essential oils that have been proven to clean the air, like thieves oil, for example, right? And certain strategies to improve air can also be using HEPA air filters. Now, HEPA air filters are high efficiency particulate accumulator. Now, these filter with air down to 0.001 microns. All right, so this is essentially getting everything out of the air, and it's a very different experience once you have one around. And there's other ones. There's one called a molecule. It's a PICO, or pulsed electrochemical oxidation. But essentially one of those two. But since we're doing this briefly, I'm going to get the other ones. So that's air. Now, water. This is a big one, man. Water. So we have to talk about different types. So as a municipal water supply, I think it's important to be grateful for that in a sense. Because there are certain countries walking around, man, like they're drinking water, it looks like mud, right? And it's literally killing them. So be grateful for that water. But at the same time, there's a lot of problems. Like it's contaminated with chlorine, which is also known as bleach. It is also contaminated with fluoride. Now, real quick on fluoride. There's two types of fluoride. You got sodium fluoride, calcium fluoride. Calcium fluoride is natural. It's in certain things. Now, sodium fluoride was originally developed as a pharmaceutical drug to suppress the thyroid, right? Now, also, there's been kind of certain studies back and forth showing its effect on the bones, right? Now, this is why they put it in our water and the dentistry and all that, but there's a lot of problems that go into that. So, fluoride, I mean, is government really concerned with their bones? I mean, seriously? But that's another thing. So, going down the line of water quality, we can talk about spring water, which is the highest quality thing that you come in contact with. This is what our ancestors have always done. But now there's some contamination in some of them, so you got to be careful with that sometimes. But if you want to look for that, go to findaspring.com. All right. But then you go into well water. Now, well water is very dense in minerals. Now, the reason for this is due to its immature water quality, which means that we drill down into the earth and the water has not gone through its hydrological cycle, which is basically the Earth's water filtration system. So it's kind of this immature water, so it's very dense in minerals. That's very good as well, but again, do your testing to make sure everything is good. And then we can go into the next, which is going to be most optimal for most people, and it's just a reverse osmosis system. Now, similarly to the HEPA air filter, a reverse osmosis system filters down to 0.001 microns. So essentially getting everything out of the water that is not water. But now there's a problem with this as well, because if you look in nature, man, you're not going to find pure H2O anywhere you look. There's always minerals dissolved into water. But now when you look at this reverse osmosis water, there's no minerals in it. So it's actually robbing minerals from your body in order to get processed, because water requires minerals in order to get processed. So an antidote to this is be adding minerals to that water. So high quality sea salt, Celtic salt, Redmond's real salt, something like that. That would be a good workaround. So that's water. And then we can talk about earthing. Now, earthing, this is kind of this may be a foreign concept to a lot of people, but what this is essentially being connected to the earth. Skin to skin contact. This is because if you think about it, man, our ancestors have been connected to the earth 24/7 all the time up until very recent times. And now to give you a bit of a picture, what happens is that we're conductive beings, right? This is why you can get shocked. This is why the doctors use EKGs, EEGs. It literally is measuring the electromagnetic energy your heart is putting out. These are things that doctors use for testing. Now, the Earth is brimming with something called free electrons. Now, free electrons, you can liken those to antioxidants, because a free radical needs a free electron or an antioxidant in order to get neutralized. Now, it's been shown that by being connected to the Earth, we are actually taking in these antioxidants. And if you just go out in the earth for a certain period of time, you can measure this. There's certain tools you can use, because like if there's very science-minded people like me, like this may seem crazy, but you can measure this. And if you just do it anecdotally, if you stand in the grass 20, 30 minutes, you're going to feel the effects. And it's not just being outside, because you can measure the difference. And there's so many benefits that come from this. Like there's a researcher named Clint Ober. He goes deep into this. And basically what it does is it regulates our hormonal system, helps you sleep better, all these types of things. It lowers your cortisol, which is the number one stress hormone in our body. So all these different types of things. So that's earthing. And then we talk about electromagnetic frequencies, or EMFs. Now, unlike the earthing, which is natural EMFs, like something we've been exposed to for a long time, these are what you call things that are from cell phones, Wi-Fi, all these things. And within this class, there's ionic radiation and anionic radiation. Ionic is what you can discern from X-rays and things like that. But anionic is the thing that is this low-level frequency you're exposed to all of the time, like Wi-Fi, cell phones, all these things. Now, being in the real world, we can't escape this, right? So, right, and not use them. Don't not use them, but be intelligent in your use. And how you do that is certain things like airplane mode. Like if you're not using your phone, not only is that a productivity hack, but it actually allows you to diminish the Wi-Fi much more. So anytime your laptop's not on, like anything, like if you're not using it, just put in airplane mode, right? And there's so many different strategies you can use for that as well. But real quick, like what it does, we have something called VGCGs, or voltage-gated calcium channels in our body. Now, when we are exposed to EMFs, these voltage-gated calcium channels kind of activate something called peroxynitrate, which is a highly potent free radical in our bodies. And this is something that's low-level inflammation that we have going all the time. So that's kind of essentially what it does. So we have to be more resilient to these things. And lastly, I'll go over light. Now, this is extremely important because a lot of us today, man, we're afraid of the sun. Like, the sun is the number one thing that gives life to this planet. Getting enough sunlight is so key. Now, why, like, the cancer scare is because, like, most people, when we do it, like, we don't do it gradually. Like, the people who are in the sun all the time, they actually have less risk of cancer because they're getting it gradually, right? But when you do it, if you, like I remember, like, being a kid just going from the dead of winter here in Michigan to Florida for like a week, and you come back like a completely different skin complexion. It's not healthy for the skin. Like, it may be a fun vacation and all that, but because it's not gradual at all. So gradual exposure. Now, what are the benefits of the sun? We obviously know about vitamin D, but it is responsible for optimizing your hormones, neurotransmitters. And by the way, like, why does vitamin D get produced from sunlight? Well, we have cholesterol in our skin. And the cholesterol in our skin interacts with the UVB spectrum of the sun to kickstart the process of vitamin D creation. So cholesterol is not all bad either, but I don't really get into that. But essentially, there's other things to do to optimize light, like indoor lighting. What type of light bulbs are you using? This is something that most people don't think about. So if you look at incandescent bulbs, these are the most biologically friendly bulbs they use. Then you have fluorescents and LEDs. By using the incandescent, like the Thomas Edison bulbs, like when it comes to light bulbs, there's something called flicker rate, which is basically the light turning on and off like countless times, and it kind of damages our retina, but we don't really perceive it. And the incandescent bulbs also have something called a CRI of 100, or color rendering index, basically being close to the sunlight, right? And it's halogen and all these types of things. And of course, LEDs, they're producing a lot less energy, so to speak. But if you don't have the lights on that much, it's okay either way. But the thing about LEDs is they're banned in certain countries because they use some mercury. So you got to be careful either way. And artificial light at night, I'll say this, diminishing that as much as you can is key, because it kind of interferes with your sleep quality in a sense. Like, the more light you're exposed to at night is going to disrupt our melatonin cycles, our sleep cycles, and all that. So just being mindful of that just using the lights as little as you can. Of course, like use them, but just be careful in your use. That's what I'd say on that.
That was y'all's free science lesson for today. You know, a lot of this stuff I've not really learned, and it kind of goes to show, like, how messed up our school system is, because majority of that stuff is something I've never learned. Even college, I took biology in college, didn't even discuss that. Which I took, I think biology, so it was like human biology, so I didn't really talk about biology where it was focused on nature, earth, animals, and stuff like that. It was more the brain, bones, sexual organs. It was stuff like that that I had to learn. So, well, that was so much information about the science. So I appreciate you sharing that because I know a lot of people probably have never heard that. When it
Yeah,
comes to
thank you.
the overall mindset, what role does mindset play in overall wellness?
Yeah, man. As I said before, mindset is the foundation for me because mindset really is responsible for your character and your decision making and all these types of things. Like, there's two sciences I like to talk about. It's psychoneuroimmunology and psychoneuroendocrinology. Now, this literally translates to how our thoughts and our emotions affect our immune system and our endocrine system, which is also known as a hormone system. So this, if you think about it, like if we start thinking these stressful thoughts, so we're going to obviously create chemistry in our bodies, like cortisol, all these things. We're literally feeling how we change, and our feelings, like it's literally impacting our immune system, all these types of things. So what I like to say is, man, is really get in touch with who you are. Like, what do you believe at the end of the day? What are your standards? What are your values? Like, what principles do you live by? You know, and the more we can actually examine our beliefs, I believe that awareness is the first step to change. Because a lot of us, man, we're carrying around these beliefs and they're not even ours. Like we're carrying around beliefs that don't belong to us. Like these disempowering things we're carrying around, whether we're not enough, whether I can't make things happen, or I'm not meant for this. But the reality is you are powerful beyond all measure. You matter. You need to know that. Like you have to understand that you as a person, you matter and you're needed in this world. So understanding that you have to overcome your story at the end of the day, because as humans, man, we all go through things. But the reality is, are you going to go through it or are you going to grow through it? Because if you choose growth, I mean, you're going to live a life of freedom at the end of the day. Because also, you have to understand that everything is your fault. Bad things are going to happen. But ultimately, it's going to be our responsibility at the end of the day. And responsibility is essentially choosing what happens next, right? Okay, this thing happened. This may not be your fault. You may need to do some healing around it. But you get to decide what happens next in your life.
What's the overall, what kind of legacy would you like to be remembered for? You know, for if people from in the future come across you, and um, if you happen to not do podcasting anymore, if some more opportunities come about, what legacy would you like to be remembered for?
Yeah, man, I'm trying to leave a legacy for generations to come because, to whom is given, much is expected at the end of the day. I've been through so much with my health challenges, so much with the pain I've been through. And I just remember being in that pain. All I wanted was to be on the other side of that possibility. Now I'm on that other side, man. I can't tell you how good it feels. I can't tell you that the fire developed within your soul. And I just want to inspire the masses. I want to inspire people to create change within their own wellness. And ultimately, leaving the world better than you found it. Like inspiring people to become the greatest version of themselves. That's the best gift that we have. Like everyone has greatness within them. And if we actually unlock that within ourselves, we discover our full potential, that's where it's at. And if you can actually, kind of operate at this higher frequency and, elevate others, like want others to win, like celebrate other people's success, really want to be of service, and being genuine in your approach and being generative within your actions, that's where it's at, man. Staying focused on the mission every single day.
To kind of wrap things up, what advice do you have for people that maybe hearing this episode and would like to kind of maybe take the same path you've had, and especially give advice for people that might be going through an illness that they think that it's the end of the road. What advice do you have for them to keep going and keep
Thanks for
fighting?
that question, man. Like, people are going through an illness right now and they don't know what to do, man. Just know within your heart that it's possible. Whatever it is that you want. If someone that you're working with doesn't have the same goals as you, hey, give yourself permission to look for someone else. If they say you can't get well, just look at that as they don't know how to help you. Doesn't mean they don't mean well, but they can't help you. The medical system is great for emergencies. They are very bad at treating chronic conditions. If you want to get well and be free, look within yourself and ask empowering questions. The questions are the answer. The better questions you have, the better questions that you ask, the higher quality answers that you will receive. And once you get those answers, take action. Take action every single day and keep a North Star within you, right? Look for people who have gotten well. Because if you just do research on people who have gotten well from your illness, you're going to find it everywhere. We just have to have the audacity and awareness to look. And that's where I would start, man, you know. And I can talk about like health coaching and all that, but if you were going through something, like just know that the answer exists. It's not that the solution doesn't exist. We just have to become receptive to that solution.
If people would like to check your podcast out and would like to just kind of learn more about your story and learn more about what you do, where can they find your podcast? And especially if you have a website or social media, feel free to promote that as well as for people to be able to connect with you.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. So my podcast is Anthony Guastella Wellness. This is where we talk about everything wellness, personal development related, and I'll really spread the mission as much as we can. Have a great experts on. I do a lot of solo sods. I do have a website, anthonygastella.com. This is where I write articles. I just published my 300th article, so I'm really proud of that. I do coaching. I speak locally and all these types of things, but ultimately, man, the mission is to be of service. Really be that model through my actions every single day and help as many people as I possibly can to live their best life.
Well, Anthony, so thank you so much for coming on and just being a huge inspiration to the people around you. And I know that people that listen to your podcast are so inspired by you and are just so happy to have the podcast up and going. So thank you so much for coming on. I really have appreciated it.
Thank you for having me, man. I love the topic of the show, truth. And, that's what it's all about at the end of the day, man, standing for what's real. So I appreciate you for doing the show and continue your work as well.
Well, thank you so much. And to my listeners, thank y'all so much for tuning in today. Feel free to follow me on social media as well, Instagram and TikTok. It's Lethal Venom Podcast on there, and Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. It's Noah's Podcast. Feel free to follow me on those social media platforms if you would like. And then feel free to listen to Lethal Venom wherever you get your podcast from. Is available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Pandora. It's everywhere. It's on all the major platforms, and you're more than welcome to follow it so you'll be notified of when new episodes come out. Thank y'all so much for tuning in today. Y'all be safe. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll talk to you all and see you all in the next episode of Lethal Venom.